Hey, welcome to Bedside Manners, Travel Nursing Unhinged, the podcast where we talk about the ins and outs, everything you need to know about travel nursing. We talk to current travelers. We have guests constantly coming and going, experts in the industry. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. I am Corey. With me, as always, is my good friend, my fellow recruiter, Mr. Paul. Paul, how you doing today?
Good, Corey.
Awesome. So we got a good show lined up for you guys today. First and foremost, Paul, dude, we got a new state that's about to join the compact states.
Yeah, a new one, and just it was sent over to the governor. And fist pump. Can we get a fist pump?
Get your hair gel ready, ladies.
Yep.
Dudes, hit the gym. Do some pumping.
Get ready for the shore.
Because Jersey is about to become a compact state. Yep. Just waiting on a signature from the governor. It's going to open up a lot more of the East Coast. It's a good thing. We're all excited for it. Remember from our last episode or a couple episodes back, guys, we were talking about compact states. Still waiting. Pending legislation is Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Illinois. We're waiting on those. We will keep you updated on that. We got another good tip of the week, guys. This week's tip, travel nursing paperwork. I always hear it's always so overwhelming, building a profile. We're going to go over the basics with you, give you some tips and tricks on how to make it as streamlined as possible. And we got another guest with us this week.
Yes, one of my past travelers and great friend, Mr. Tim Carroll, who traveled as a CVOR nurse for a few years, and he even spent some quality time at Johns Hopkins out in Baltimore. So we'll be hearing from him here shortly, and we'll ask him a lot of questions on what he did and what his experiences was like as a CVOR nurse.
Yeah, those ones are intense. Those are fun.
Yes.
Johns Hopkins, that's a good hospital. That's a resume builder for sure. I want to hear all about that. Well, Paul, let's jump into our Unhinged tip of the week. So again, the paperwork, resumes, getting profiles built, guys. Hear it all the time. Oh, it's so much work to build a profile with another agency.
Yeah. Every agency is going to want these four things: a resume, updated, of course, work history, or some sort of online application. Every agency does it differently. Just make sure you ask your recruiter, how do you want me to send over my work history? As our last episode, references, huge. The more the merrier. Skills checklist, competency exam, and usually those are online, and copies of your certifications.
And like Paul said, pretty much every agency is going to require some combination of those four things. And by keeping an updated resume, that's probably the most important. And referencing, those go hand in hand. Keep them on your phone.
Yeah.
Put all those in an email. Email it to yourself so you have it on your phone. You would be surprised how many travelers, how many nurses, how many techs we talk to that, I say, hey, I'm going to need an up-to-date resume. And, it's at home, or, I don't have that, or it's out of date.
Especially if you have that dream job that a recruiter pitches you, or if you're just starting to work with a recruiter and they have awesome jobs in a location that you want and you can't apply for because you don't have a work history and you can't remember the dates.
And every time you change agencies or an agency has a perfect job, time is money.
Yep.
We've talked about this before, how speed to market is so key. And if you want that job and you have everything on your phone, you send all those documents, that's incentive for recruiters. I know me personally, if I talk to somebody on the phone and I say, hey, I got this job, you apply for it online, and while we're on the phone or even, 5 minutes after we end the conversation, if they send me 1, 2, 3, 4 of those things.
Yeah, right off the bat.
I'm going to match that. I'm going to match that urgency. I'm going to work my tail off to get that profile built for him.
That incentivizes very well, because I can't tell you how many times I'll get it to you later and you don't hear back from them. But if I get like a whole file, even like immunizations and
send me whatever
and stuff like that, I see that and I'm like, oh man,
they know what they're doing. Like, I'm going to work with them. I'm going to match that. And so again, I know it sounds like a lot, guys, but trust me, having this on your phone, having it to where you can send it, at the snap of a fingers and not have to go chase or think about it, and keeping it up to date. Every assignment you do,
just spend 15 minutes after every assignment and just update your stuff. Yeah,
or even 6 weeks in when you're getting those references to it. And things to include on a resume, guys. We always look for this. Details, unit details. How many beds, how many OR suites, ratios, types of cases you're doing. Are you scrubbing? Are you circulating if you're in the OR? Are you floating? Are you charging? Are you precepting? Typically, that doesn't happen with travelers, but we've had it before.
Yeah.
I've had travelers charge, and I've had travelers precept.
Precepting. I have travelers precept all the time.
What charting system you guys are using. Include all that, as much detail in your resume. And then when we're building your profile, if we don't have to go back and ask those questions, it's just streamlined.
Yeah.
It goes so much faster.
And a travel resume doesn't really need to include like general nursing duties.
Fluff.
Yeah, fluff. It's all fluff. Recruiters know what nurses do.
Managers know what nurses do.
Yes, exactly. Just get down to the meat and bones, and you'll be surprised. You'll have
and the managers,
much better
like
outcome.
we said, it's not about fluff. Managers know what a med surg nurse does. They're going to want to know, hey, what types of patients were you seeing? Were you seeing mainly medical patients? Were you seeing mainly surgical patients? Were you monitoring tele patients? Were you floating through, onc, neuro, ortho, all those different subsections of med surg? It's those details they care about, not that fluff.
I help patients get discharged and family planning.
They know that's all part of under the umbrella. We want the specifics. And it's those specifics in your resume that can be the difference between getting an assignment or not getting an assignment.
Down to the point.
Yep, right to it.
Easy.
So guys, again, all in one email. Stay organized. References, like we talked about. Get as many as you can. Include all those in that email. As soon as we have a job for you, you send that in a profile. Profiles don't take long to build.
No, they don't. 20 minutes.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
Or at most sometimes.
Yeah.
Unless you're a traveler who's been traveling for 20 years and we've got to go back. That takes a little time.
Yeah.
But again, if you have all that, you have those details, it's just grunt work, entering it into the computer.
And one other thing with the skills checklist, a lot of agencies use Prophecy. And you're like, I don't want to do the skills checklist again for another agency. I hate Prophecy.
A lot of times it's transferable.
It's transferable. Just tell your recruiter, I completed this with this agency. It's relevant. Just give them your login information. It's usually your email and a 6-digit number, and they can log in and pull that information so you don't have to do it again.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be hard copies of your certs too. If you have the e-cards, we're seeing that a lot more.
They're transferring all of those.
Email those to your recruiter, and those work fine.
Yep.
So all that stuff, guys, that's the biggest tip is if you want the job, as you know, jobs move quickly in this business, may be there today, may not be tomorrow. So if you want that job and your agency doesn't have it, but agency B does, you don't have a profile with them, you don't have those documents, you're not going to get that job.
Yep.
It's going to be gone.
And it's gone.
And it's gone. He gone. So guys, coming up, we have Tim Carroll, our OR, CVOR extraordinaire nurse. We're going to get him on the phone here shortly, and we're going to talk to him, ask him all these questions.
All right. Hey, guys, we have a very special guest here today, Mr. Tim Carroll. He is a CVOR nurse. He traveled with us for about 2 years, and now he has settled down into more of a permanent role. But no, Tim, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the show. So, Tim, we always start this off. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. Why nursing? Why did you become a nurse? I always like to ask male nurses, why nursing? It's typically a female-dominated profession. And, where did you start? Where'd you go to school? Where was your first job in a hospital?
Sure. Yeah, no. Being a nurse or being in the medical field has always just kind of been in my blood. My brother's a physician. My mom was a nurse. I had 2 sisters who were nurses. My dad worked in a hospital. So growing up, I was kind of always in and out of hospitals one way or another, with my sisters or my brothers. And so, I've kind of always been drawn to that, and kind of the decision to go to nursing school was an easy one. It was something that I just felt comfortable doing. I like to help people, and, being a nurse is everything that I thought it would be and more. I've been able to, obviously travel, see great places, work with great people, meet great patients. I live over in the northeastern part of the States, in Pennsylvania. And I went to Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania. It's a Pennsylvania state school. They have a post-baccalaureate program. So nursing is actually my second career. I was a biologist before. And it was a quick nursing program, down and dirty, got right into the meat of nursing. And never looked back. Worked up on a nursing floor for about a year before moving down to the OR, and then transferred into the cardiac OR, and I love it.
Yeah, and the CVOR, what is that like versus the general OR?
CV is it's a different world for sure. The OR is the OR, no matter whether you work with orthopedic surgeons or gynecologic surgeons. No matter what kind of specialty you're in, the OR is a different type of nursing. Cardiac OR is even more so, I think, just because you're dealing with even more sick patients than usual, more critically ill that have, the big thing that gets me every day in and day out, is I look in the chest sometimes when I scrub and the heart's not beating. And there's just something not normal about that. And it kind of takes your breath away, and I've been doing this for 8 years, and it still takes my breath away every time I see it. And these patients are ones who may not come in electively. They may come in traumatically, and under an emergent situation where their aorta is dissecting, and here you are in the middle of the night trying to come in and save these people. And as they're going to sleep, you just look at them and they have this fear of God in their eyes, and just they don't know what's going on. They're scared to death. They might be, they might not even be conscious because of kind of what's happening. But it's always an adventure. And that's not to say, again, that being in a general OR is not, but it's really, really opened my eyes to how fickle life is sometimes.
Wow,
that's deep.
I can only imagine what it's like to be in an OR, let alone like a CVOR. And now, Tim, I believe from what Paul's told me, you kind of you're jack of all trades in the OR. You can do gen, you can do CV, you can do orthos, totals, you can scrub, you can circulate. Now, and you've done both on an assignment. Like you'll be in CV and then you'll go to gen. How is it switching gears from like the CV and that just intensity you were talking about to, changing down to something, an appendectomy or something like that. It's not quite as critical. How is it switching gears, or have you found that doing that on assignment?
That's a good question. I guess I've never really thought about it more so than just I'm, moving on to another patient who's got another problem that we're trying to fix. Like I mentioned earlier, when I first came down to the OR, I worked in the general OR. So I did everything except for cardiac and vascular cases. And so, those were kind of my beginnings. That's where I got my feet wet and where I really learned everything about the OR. And then I just kind of subspecialized into the cardiac world. Well, when I was on assignments and, I was at one hospital that didn't really have a big cardiac program, and I was there to function just as a nurse in the OR wherever they needed me. And it was nice in a way to kind of get back to my roots. And again, I don't think of it as going from cardiac to something lesser, because each surgery, each patient, they are just as important as the next one. And sometimes it's a nice little break when you have again, not saying they're easier cases, but when you have those less critical cases, it's kind of a nice break to where you don't have to be on your toes the whole time. And things can still go wrong in the blink of an eye. But, and that being said, there's still, my love still stands for cardiac cases. And there's nothing like that rush of adrenaline when, something doesn't go as planned, or things, are kind of going south, but then through amazing teamwork of the anesthesiologists and the surgeons and the staff nurse and the scrub nurse, this patient ends up getting off the table and, making it out of the operating room. It's just an amazing thing.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And so with having those multiple skill sets and being able to, to transition like that as you have, do you think that it's beneficial, or how important, because we know it's beneficial for travelers, but how important do you think it is for a traveler, in the OR to have multiple skills and multiple cases or in multiple specialties, being able to float like that?
I think it's invaluable. People that, new nurses that come into the OR, whether they're right out of school or, are new to the OR, or even people that have been in the OR that I've precepted or worked with, I've kind of always been an advocate of knowing more than just one specialty. Don't just, I feel like a lot of times people tend to get comfortable and then, I'm only going to do spine cases, or I'm only going to do cardiac, or, one or the other. And, that's all well and good, but as a nurse and even as a scrub tech, I think that it's important to really be well versed in all of the different specialties, because you never know what's going to happen or when you're going to be called on for an emergency or just an extra set of hands. I've had patients and I've been in cases where we're doing a belly case, but then all of a sudden it turns into a OBGYN case. And, here I am scrubbing thinking I'm doing a bowel resection, and next thing you know, we're doing a hysterectomy. So if it wasn't for my knowledge and being well versed in all of those things, they would have had to pull another staff person in there to help me, those kind of things. Sure, I wasn't the most efficient at it, but we got through it, and the patient ended up doing fine. And it's just one of those things where it really helps to be so proficient at, not even proficient at everything, but at least have the knowledge to know what you're doing to get you through situations, even if you're not comfortable doing it all the way to completion, at least until somebody else can get there for you. And so I always try and preach that to, again, the new nurses that I precept, or the nurses that I talk to that seem so dead set in being in one specialty, that, don't corner yourself in, because especially as a traveler,
Yep.
it opens up a wide variety of opportunities.
And you feel like you've had more opportunities because of that, because of your flexibility and able to, do multiple different types of cases.
Absolutely. Just, because if working in the cardiac OR, and, there were times where there might not have been cardiac OR positions. And that's, the hospital that I worked at down in Houston, it didn't really have a cardiac program. I think in the 6 months that I was there, they did 4 open hearts. And if it wasn't for my ability to be a general nurse and work in ortho and all those other specialties, I probably would not have been able to go there.
Yep.
And, eventually, I probably would have found a cardiac job somewhere. But, my experience in Houston was an amazing one. And I'm glad that I had those skill sets that allowed me to go there. So yeah, I think it's a huge advantage.
That's awesome. That's so good to hear.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it when I hear stuff like that
I
from
know.
nurses. It's recruiters can tell you that till we're blue in the face,
Yeah.
but when it comes from a nurse,
Right.
it's so much more powerful.
It's just like, yes. Praise. Yes.
So Tim,
And it's hard. I mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just say it's hard because, again, we find those comfort zones where, if you do the same cases day in, day out for 5 years, sometimes it is hard. And even, I still have days where I get pulled out to the general OR and have to do a case where it takes me a minute or two to, kind of get my bearings. But sometimes I'm uncomfortable, but it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it.
Awesome. So Tim, you were at the Johns Hopkins, correct? You did a travel assignment there,
Yeah.
right? Tell us about that. What was it like to work at a world, you even outside of travel nursing, medical health care.
Yeah.
You say Johns Hopkins, people know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What was it like working at a facility with like that name, that prestige?
As your first assignment.
Oh God, that was your first assignment?
Yeah, right. That's my first assignment.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thanks for the prep, Paul.
Yeah.
So, it's funny because when I got offered the job there, it was kind of surreal because I had those same thoughts. Like, this is Johns Hopkins, like the Johns Hopkins. Everybody knows it. Like, why do they need travelers? Something must be going on. They must be opening, new ORs. They must need new people. Well, I get there and it's one of those things where they just, it's a hospital that needs staff for one reason or another. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just, a thing that happens. People move on and they need people. And, and so coming from this little town of barely 100,000 people, a 300 bed hospital that we do our fair share of surgeries every year, cardiac surgeries. We don't do transplants. We don't do big, procedures, mechanical assist devices, all that stuff. So here I am, little old me, going into Baltimore to this, world-renowned hospital where I took care of patients from Eastern Europe and, Africa and South America and all this stuff that are coming to this hospital just because of how good of a reputation it has. And I'm doing these huge cases. It was intimidating, to say the least. But it was such a great experience, and one that, I couldn't have asked for a better staff that was there and a better management and just a better hospital, to really kind of get my feet wet with traveling. Because it really gave me a taste of what awesome surgery can be like, that, I just wanted to keep on doing it. And I told Paul, like, I just keep getting me into big hospitals. I want to go places, big hospitals, big cities, I want to do the fun stuff.
Yeah. And being at like Johns Hopkins, do you think, because I mean, as a recruiter, we certainly would say Johns Hopkins, that's a resume builder. Like, do you think
for sure
having that as your first travel assignment, do you think it helped you? I mean, do you feel it's a resume builder from the nurse's perspective?
I do. And even, I've been a part of interview processes before too. And, I think people sometimes downplay the importance of where you've worked and what you've done. I think it's important to name drop when you can, and I know that if any of my future employers wanted to get a reference from any of the people I worked with there, I know that they would hear nothing but good stuff. And, I think that's the important thing. Not only, is it a good thing to have on your resume? Like, yeah, I worked here for, 7 months and did this and this, but also these people wanted me to stay. These people wanted me to continue to work there. And I think that, Johns Hopkins, I was at Memorial Hermann in Houston. I was at University of Colorado in Denver. All three of those hospitals are big hospitals in their own right. And I definitely think that putting that on my resume, or, any big name hospitals, if you put them on your resume, that's definitely an advantage for you as a nurse to say, I worked here, I did these big cases, I worked with the best of the best surgeons and staff, and I'm here to offer you my talents. I think that's a huge advantage.
Right. So what was your favorite assignment, Tim? I think I know the answer to this one, though. But
you should, Paul. You're his recruiter. You should know all this.
Again, I think they were each special in their own right. I think Denver takes the cake on that one, just because the overall, the city was amazing. The people that I worked with were amazing. The cases that we did, and I was just reflecting on this the other day, actually talking with one of my colleagues. The cases that we did there were some pretty gnarly cases. Whether it was cardiac related or, even cases that I did when I was pulled out into the general OR. Because being a traveler, yes, I was on the cardiac team, but in the same sense, if they didn't have enough cases and they had too much staff, I was the first one to get pulled out of those rooms. And I was fine with that, because it gave me the opportunity to learn and experience new things in my career. I think that hospital and that city and my experiences there, easily put Denver at the top of that list. But, Johns Hopkins, again, it was my first travel assignment, and it was one that, really kind of opened my eyes to the world of bigger and badder surgeries. And, my time in Houston was nice because, again, it was, a rotation of me just doing the majority general stuff. It was a nice kind of change of pace for me, and I did get to do some cardiac stuff, which was nice. They offered me a management position there before I left, because I think they really wanted to keep me. But,
you should have taken it. You should come back though too if you want.
So Tim, I mean, me and Paul, we work with a lot of OR nurses, a lot of techs, so we hear all the horror stories all the time about, OR, you got to have thick skin, and surgeons being, God complexes, especially heart surgeons, and, kind of just the thick skin in the OR, maybe getting bullied. And have you experienced that with surgeons? I know we chatted, on our last episode, we talked to one of Paul's nurses about the same thing, and I want to get a male's opinion on it. Like, how have you dealt with those attitudes,
Sure.
the egos of the OR as a traveler?
There's definitely some complexes there. That's for sure. And it's not just as travelers. I mean, anytime that you work in an OR, anytime you work as a nurse and you're working with physicians, you're going to get those ones who think they're better than you. And my kind of take on all of that is just, listen, we're all here for this patient. I don't care if you're the one doing the operating or I'm the one, sitting at the computer charging the supplies, or giving the meds, or I'm the one taking the patient from the floor down to the OR. It doesn't matter. We're all here for this patient. And I think sometimes doctors just need a gentle reminder of that. One of the things that I always kind of think of as a travel nurse is, when you go someplace new, these people don't know you, whether it's the staff or the surgeons, and the surgeons obviously are the big ones, especially when you're a scrub. These surgeons don't know you. They don't know how good you are. They don't know if they can trust you. And you have to prove yourself to them time and time again. Sometimes it's easier, to prove it and get over that hump and be in good with them. And sometimes it's hard. And I definitely had a couple of situations where, I knew what I was doing and I knew I was comfortable doing whatever I was doing, but the surgeon didn't. And, I got some pushback from it. And, sometimes you bump heads a little bit and you just have to go about it in a political way. And I got called into the manager's office, on my first day and kind of set things straight. Like, listen, I know what I'm doing. She, doesn't trust me. I understand that. I didn't hold any grudges. I know that, what we're doing is not, small stuff. And, it's another thing that I tell my preceptees when I orient people is that you do have to have thick skin, and you can't let it get to you, because it might not be you. They're having a bad day. The patient's taking a turn for the worse. Their wife and them got into an argument, whatever it might be. Most of the time it's not you. I mean, definitely can be you sometimes, but it doesn't change just because you're a travel nurse, or it's not different just because you're a travel nurse. I've experienced it multiple times when we have new surgeons come in who think they know better than you, and they don't. I've worked with some surgeons, as my one friend once said, I worked with some surgeons who I wouldn't let cut my toast. And
wow,
it's kind of funny because.
And where was this? What hospital? What facility? What year? What type of surgery?
I will not divulge that information. But and I think travel nurses sometimes get frustrated easily because of that. At least some of the ones that I've talked to, and it just my kind of thought on that was why bother myself with getting worried about that when I know tomorrow is going to be a whole new day. And like I said, we're all just here for that patient. And in the end, that's what really matters.
That's awesome.
That's a good take.
And how, you traveled, you weren't alone. And, how, first of all, how did you make friends, and what was it like traveling with Kiri, your fiance?
So, so it was good and it was bad.
Is that because it was your wife, or because you're a travel pair, or column A, column B?
Yeah, kind of a little bit of both. As a traveler trying to make friends, I think traveling's not for everybody. Okay. And that's one of the things I've had a lot of nurses that I've run into. They're like, oh, I want to be a travel nurse. I want to be a travel nurse, but it's not for everybody. You have to be confident in what you do. And the other thing is that you have to not be antisocial. Like, you have to come out of your shell, and you have to be the kind of person that can go and talk to people and make friends. I have no problems making friends. I have no problems talking. I'm blessed with the gift of blarney. And I can make friends with anybody, and that wasn't an issue for me. I still talk to people that I worked with in Baltimore and Houston and Denver. I have friends that have visited me, and from those places, and it's really been an amazing thing. And traveling with Kiri, my fiance, she's a X-ray tech, and she got some travel assignments along the way as well. And it was awesome to go with her and make new friends together, and then also get closer with her. Our relationship was kind of just budding when we started traveling, and we got engaged along the way our first day in Denver. And it really helped us to grow.
Did you guys meet on assignment?
No.
We met in a hospital, not on assignment though. We both worked at the same hospital before, here in Pennsylvania. She was an X-ray tech in the cath lab, and then working in the OR hybrid room. That's where we met. And we kind of got talking and started seeing each other and talked about wanting to travel and experience things. I got the job offer in Baltimore, and she tagged along a couple months later when she got a job offer. And we just took off and decided to learn and experience and grow together. And it was an awesome experience. I think traveling by yourself can be a good experience as well, but traveling with a friend or somebody else, somebody who eventually I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, that was an awesome thing, because we got to grow in our careers, but we also got to grow personally together. Making friends was kind of on the back burner at first, because it was like, let's just kind of experience things together. But then it was, no, let's make the most out of this. And it was both experiences. Like I said, there was kind of some good, some bad, but mostly good.
Awesome. What did you find challenging about being part of a travel pair, like in finding jobs? Was it, waiting for her to find a job, waiting for you to find a job, making sure they line up in the same area, same town, same facility? What did you find challenging? Because we know, Paul and I know the challenges of working with travel pairs. But from your end, what did you find to be the most difficult part of it?
It wasn't as challenging as I thought. And I think that, her and I kind of had a understanding that, we were going to wherever, if I got a job first, or if she got a travel job first, I didn't think that, at least what Paul told me anyways, was it wasn't going to be hard for me to find a job because of my skill sets, kind of going back to, because I'm able to do cardiac and general. If there was no cardiac jobs around where she got a job, I would be fine, because I could still do those things.
Mm-hmm.
I can circulate and I can scrub. So, all of these things made me more marketable as a nurse to any and all facilities, because I can function in pretty much any role that they might need.
Yep.
And so, I didn't find it too worrisome of, well, what if I don't find a job? And so more of the challenge was her finding jobs, because as we came to find out as we continued to travel, was that it was harder to find X-ray tech jobs that are specialized, because she's specialized into the cath lab. She can take, there are different X-ray jobs out there, diagnostic and those kind of things. But for what she was looking for, it was harder for her. And it just worked out that I was the one that found the jobs, and then she would come along and, continue looking for jobs, and would find a job after a while, wherever we were. And, that meant she had to work at a couple odd jobs here and there just to kind of, supplement our income until she found a job. But, I think if you ask her, she definitely enjoyed that part of it too, because it made her kind of come out of her shell and help her have a different outlook on things. But I've talked to people who are husband and wife nursing, travel nurses that travel together, and I think sometimes that can really limit you in where you go, because you're kind of saying, well, hey, we're a package deal, either we both come, or you don't get either one of us. And I know, talking to Paul, and he's shared even some of his stories about his other travelers who maybe not couples, but even just friends who are like, yeah, let's travel together. And it's kind of a package deal. And sometimes you find a place for them and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And
You got to go where the jobs are at.
yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, again, sometimes that's hard because you might not want to go there, but that's the only place that needs two nurses that are willing to take you both and work with you both. But, I thought it was going to be challenging with Kiri, but it definitely wasn't. And I think, again, part of that is, as a traveler, you have to have a different mindset of, I'm going to a place that needs me, and, I'm going to do what I have to do, and wherever that may be, that may be. And we were pretty flexible. It just worked out that we got some pretty awesome assignments.
That's awesome. And, traveling, with, by yourself and finding housing is, a feat in its own. What can you give us some housing tips on, what you did, and also was it easier with Kiri along with you, or did you find it more difficult, or tell us how you lined up housing for each assignment?
Sure. So, obviously the two choices are to have your company find you housing, or, find your own housing. And because Kiri was traveling with me, we had, more things, and she has a cat. And so the cat came with us. And so it was a little bit harder for us. We were kind of a little bit more of a special situation because we knew we were going to have friends and family coming to stay with us. So we wanted to make sure we had a place to stay. So we decided to find our own housing. And honestly, the easiest thing that we did was Airbnb. We used Airbnb, and there's a host of other websites like that. VRBO. There's some like corporate rental websites and stuff. And once I knew where we were going or where I wanted to go, I would start looking for housing opportunities there that, fit our needs for whatever it was going to be. Whether it was staying close to the hospital. When we were in Denver, we knew that we were going to have family and friends out, so we wanted a bigger place, that was closer to the airport, and we found that. So I would just look for places, and eventually I would, send out 5, 6, 7 emails to a bunch of places and say, here's my story. We're travelers. We have a cat. We're looking for this, and this, these dates. What are your thoughts on that? And sometimes people would message back and be like, no, we can't do long term because we have somebody already booked, or, we don't want a cat, whatever the case may be. But, just being vigilant about looking early and looking often. I am extremely happy with all of my choices and where we stayed. Every place was awesome and, reasonably priced, and, same kind of thing. I mean, I still kept it. I just got an email the other day from our landlord down when we were in Houston, and just it's another experience of traveling.
Nice. And so you're done now, done traveling, unfortunately. So you're getting married.
Congrats.
Yes, and I filled
Thank
out my
you.
RSVP. We'll be having the top sirloin with bacon butter for both Nick and I.
The bacon butter is
Yes, I'm excited, but but ultimately, why did you leave travel nursing? It was such a you guys did it for 2 years, and it was something that both you and Kiri I know really enjoyed, and I know you guys do miss it at to a certain extent. But can you tell us why you hung up the travel shoes?
My reasoning for not traveling anymore, I think, is one that it has nothing to do with traveling. I would still be traveling if I could. The reason I stopped was I'm in nurse practitioner school, finishing up my master's for my nurse practitioner, and when I started my clinicals, I knew it was going to be tough to try and find my own clinicals. And manage going from place to place, and because I knew it wasn't going to be a place long enough for a year and a half to do all my clinicals that I needed to do. So it just made the most sense, plus we were getting married, I graduate at the end of August, I get married a week later. So it just kind of made sense for us to come back home where I knew I could have a job. I knew the physicians that I was around that I'd be able to get clinical hours with them, and just kind of start our life back here. It just made the most sense, and it was the most comfortable decision. But again, if there was a way that I could still travel and do my clinicals and know that I would have found preceptors and gotten all my hours in, I for sure would have continued traveling. It was easily one of the best decisions of my life to start traveling. Again, it made me experience and grow so much personally, professionally as a nurse, and with Curie and our relationship. It was, I got to see and do things that I would have never seen or done had I not traveled. It was such an amazing experience, and I push it on people that I think would be good travelers, because again, it's not for everybody, and that's kind of, I feel like most times when you hear these horror stories of travelers, either from a hospital or from the travelers themselves, it's just because they weren't in the right mindset, either that they'll never be in the right mindset or just not at that time.
Just not ready.
I've had good friends that have traveled and have hated it. I try, and a lot of it honestly kind of comes down to your recruiter. I lucked out to have a really, really good recruiter named Katie, who who left and then left me with Paul.
Yeah,
but
that's a pretty good transition, though. I think it could have been worse.
Yeah, I guess it could have.
Well, Tim, you've given us so much good information already. But what's your tip to the audience, to new travelers, to experienced travelers? What is, like, in your experience traveling, what is like, hey, this helped me out every assignment? What would be one tip you would leave us with?
Just relax. Just relax and enjoy yourself. It's a fun time. Again, you're meeting people, you're learning and seeing and doing new things. If you go in with that mindset of, I'm here to work, I'm here to do my job, and have fun while I'm doing it, you will not have a problem traveling. Again, I think a lot of people think that traveling is, I'm just going to make all this money and not really do much work. Yeah, I'm sure there are assignments out there, but think about why you're being hired as a traveler at that hospital, because more often than not, it's because they're short-staffed and they need help. And so, just relax, have fun, know you're going to work, but know that it's going to be worth it, and listen to your recruiter. Your recruiter will, most of the time, will not let you down. If once you find that good recruiter, stick with it. That's why, 2.5 years I traveled with Paul, because I knew he was going to shoot me straight. I knew he was going to go up to bat for me if anything happened. But relax, enjoy it. It's worth it.
Awesome. Tim, thank you so much for all of your time this afternoon. And this was great information. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Awesome.
And we're gonna go. Corey's gonna say a joke.
Yeah.
He's got a dad joke of the week.
Dad joke of the week.
Yeah.
I'm back with another one.
Yeah.
So Tim, I did become a dad recently, about 2 months ago. And
congrats.
Thank you. And so I'm working on my dad jokes. Paul, I got a new one for you. Did you guys hear?
Like this one.
Did you guys hear about the guy? He had his whole left side surgically removed.
Ooh.
Yeah. He's all right now. All day.
You guys need the rim shot.
Tim,
I think it's safe to say you got the dad jokes down now. You just need the white New Balances that are stained with grass,
right? And the chinos too. Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
Soon.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming, Tim. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. Always love having experienced travelers with wealth of information like you have. Appreciate your time. And thanks, buddy.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
This was fun.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Talk to you soon. Well, that about wraps it up. It's always really nice to have experienced travelers on here with us, Corey.
Fun. Yeah, man.
Yeah, they're a wealth of knowledge.
Sounds like you were an okay recruiter too.
Oh yeah. No, it was Tim was awesome to work with, and no, we'll have to have him on again here in future episodes. But anyways, thanks for joining us on this episode of Bedside Manners Travel Nursing Unhinged. If you'd like to get in touch with us, send us an email at bedsidemanners@gowithadvanced.com. Each episode's show notes are available at gowithadvanced.com/bedside manners. And also be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts at. Also, if you found value from this show, give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us out. And also, special thanks to Jonathan Carey for producing this episode and Aiden Dykes for the music and editing. And as always, this episode was powered by Advanced Travel Nursing. See you next time.